Okay guys, this is Mike again. Welcome back to my shop. Quick little project here I'm working on. I'm building me a new little utility trailer. Nothing really high profile or really too exciting here going on. I've been wanting to build a new utility trailer for about a year now. My other one's just kind of weak and flimsy. I've sold a couple of my other trailers, my bigger ones. I had a 24-foot enclosed Wells Cargo that I'd sold, an 18-foot Big Tex car hauler, and I just kept my 26-foot Hallmark Edge enclosed race trailer, and I've got a little 5x8 that's flimsy. I don't know that I'd dare carry a lawnmower on the damn thing, but I wanted to build me something a little more sturdy that I would dare put a couple motorcycles on and haul around if I had to. So anyway, it's a 6x10. I chose to go with rectangular tubing versus angle iron. I know angle iron and channel iron seem to be the favorites with people. I picked up some 2x3 120 wall, no excuse me, 187 3/16 wall tubing, relatively inexpensive. I got a good deal on it, and personally I like the looks, the aesthetics of the tubing quite a bit more than angle iron. This will probably be my last trailer I build for, well, hopefully forever if I have my way. I'm gonna build this one right and build it where I'm happy with it. So anyway, I'm gonna put each track down the each side and down the middle. Just got some 1.5 inch 2x8s, and then I had to rip a couple down to fit in between the E-track. So I'm going to space the E-track up so it's flush, or just maybe 1/8 of an inch below the surface of the decking, so that I can still slide stuff in and out without catching the E-track. I know E-track's is made to bolt down on top, but it really, I don't know, I think it looks better if it's flush mounted. So anyway, I've got it set up here on my frame jig. Probably a little overkill. You don't really need a frame chassis jig to build a trailer, but I like the ability that I have to clamp the framework down and weld it and have it not move around on me. So it took me all of about an hour to set up my chassis jig, so it's no big deal to clamp the decking of the trailer down onto it to weld. So it's going to be 10 feet long, 6 foot across to the outside. It's dead nuts on. I pulled a diagonal across it. I'm 140 inches diagonally both ways, so the trailer is dead nuts square and parallel. So now I'll move these boards out of the way, and I'm going to get ready to start welding my spreader bars across. Again, there I've got some 1.5 inch tubing. I'm going to use some tubing, and then when I go to put the deck down, I'll just use decking screws and screw that into the tubing. So let me see, walk around here. I picked me up a couple of fenders. My axle should be done tomorrow or the next day, so I'm going to run full 15 in. I'm going to run 205/75 15s on it. My last little utility trailer had little 12-inch tires on it. It was great for going to the dumps or anything like that, but I didn't dare with those tires cruise down the freeway much. So I want this one to where if I hook it up behind my truck, I can cruise at 65-70 with no worries with it behind me. Be a little heavier than my last one. The other little utility trailer, I held a bike on it one time. I went and picked up a non-running bike that I'd bought, and it was so flimsy when I put the bike up the middle of the trailer and strapped, it literally just pulled both corners of the trailer up. It just cheap-ass little trailer. So like I said, it's great for hauling stuff to the dumps, but this one I wanted something to be a little more rigid, plus something that was a little more aesthetically pleasing. I look at it as when I have a trailer hooked behind my vehicles, it does represent me and the work I do, so I want it to look a little nicer. You can kind of see down the sides there. So let's see, walk over here to the bench. I got Brown truck showed up today, brought me my new goodies. I've got 12 LED light, 6-inch oval lights, the grommets for it, the pigtails for it, 1-inch diameter, 2 LED red lights for the back, having run on the back of the fender, and then also 3 across the back of the deck, and then some amber ones, pigtail with the plug, and then I ordered some E-track connectors. These aren't E-track actually, I think they're Ericsson, but I needed something to go along with the E-track so that I can fasten things down with. So I got some ratchet straps some straps, leaders, and then also I bought about 10 of these loops. I think these are rated at 1,500 pounds each. The straps I think are rated at right around 1,200 each, and I think the ratchet tie downs are 1,500 pounds each. So ought to be well ample enough to do what I need it to do. So there's the goodies there. And axle I'm putting underneath the trailer, I'm going with torsion axle, and it will be a 3,500 pound axle with 5 on 4.5 hubs, just idler hubs, no brakes. So, all right, I'm gonna get to work welding and cutting and fitting, and I'll have an update when I'm done here. The joys of a horizontal bandsaw. I bought this used here about 6-8 months ago, and probably should have bought one 20 years ago, because I've always done my cutting with a chop saw. But boy, I tell you, this horizontal bandsaw is worth its weight in gold. Being able to cut 6 spreader bars all at once, that's a time saver right there. This is a 7x12 jet. It's a mid-80s version. It's a Taiwanese. Like I say, it was used, but I cleaned it up quite a bit. I only give a few $100 for it. It's pretty good. It's got a little bit of wear in it. I had to make some new bushings and had to fix the hydraulic cylinder. Had to repack it, but other than that, it works great. And it doesn't look the greatest, but I painted up the base on it, put some casters on it so I could roll it around. But yeah, this is the only way to go. Okay, getting ready to do a demonstration weld here, and I thought about a couple things real quick. I've never seen these mentioned, or either on videos I've watched or on forums, so I thought they would be worth mentioning. I've walked into people's shops before, and I've seen their cords coming around their machines like that. Maybe a hard turn coming out of the welder. It's a good idea to keep your cord, your hose, your lead, very gradual bends. The liners in these things can get expensive over time. You spend a lot of money for your equipment, go ahead and take care of it while you're at it. 2 things. One, to have it come out, be a nice curvature, and even before I usually weld, I'll reach back and either make sure it's not coiled, make sure it's got a nice gradual curve to it. But where it comes out of your machine here, if you have it pulled out like that, to where it's coming out at an angle, it's real easy for somebody, either yourself or somebody else in the shop, to walk by and step on it. When they do, that pulls that down, and it's really hard on these ends. So what I'll do, and it's just become habit now, I'm so used to doing it, is once I get things ready, I'll just I'll kick it back a little bit so it makes a gradual curve coming out of the machine. But that way I can walk up, and if I happen to step on it accidentally, I'm not going to pull the yank down on that into that where it goes into the machine, the connection. So like I said, I just give a little kick, push back in there. I also mentioned about keeping the end clip back to keep a pair of dikes handy. That's kind of I thought that would be worth mentioning. Keep a nice gradual curve going there. Got my specs all set up here, so I'm going to go ahead and put the camera over here behind the lens and see if I can demonstrate this technique. Okay, here's, I got the lens removed. You see where I come in and I started. I got my puddle width, and then I moved down into the root. Again, here probably about a 15, maybe a 20 at the most. It's probably closer to a 15-degree gun angle. And I got down into the root, and then I made a loop up. You can see where the toes have wet in nice. There's no undercutting. Then I come back down into the root again, and then back out to wet the toes in. Basically, like I said, the loop is to make sure the width of the weld is consistent, and then you move forward, always stay on the leading edge of that puddle. Basically, I just pause it a little bit at the top, and then where it's biting in, and then drop, because of gravity, drop down into the root, come forward, drop down into the root, come forward, and that's how I get the width on it. Okay, here's a vertical down. Gun angle was about 10 degrees upwards, and once I rounded this top edge and I come down, I just did the same thing. Loop down into the root and then come around to get my width. Wet my toes in, the toes have wet in nice, and then go down into the root, come around to get my width. Dip into the root and traverse down. Well, I think I have a game plan here for my ramps. I had contemplated back and forth whether I was going to do ramps or not, but one of the purposes of this trailer is to shag motorcycles. I flip motorcycles when I run across them and buy them and fix them up and trick them out and sell them. And I've got a 26-foot enclosed Hallmark Edge race trailer that I used for when we was racing and doing and everything, but that's kind of big to haul around for only 1 or 2 bikes I'm going to pick up. And the little 5x8 utility trailer that I had just didn't dare strap anything down to it. I was afraid it was just going to taco up on the sides when I tried to strap a bike down to it. So that was one of the drivers of building this a little bit more custom utility trailer. So I was really waffling on doing ramps that were custom fit to the trailer, or just throw the ramps in the back of the truck when I go to pick up a bike or something. I opted to go ahead, and I had a set of aluminum ramps that I'd used years ago, back when I was doing a lot of work on ATVs for sand dunes, the guys in the sand dunes and whatnot. Many of them would bring them on trailers or in trailers, but there were a few that would bring them in the back of pickup trucks, and inevitably they'd usually forget their ramps. So I decided to have a set of ramps here handy that we could use to load and unload ATVs out of the back of people's trucks. I don't work on ATVs much anymore, mostly just motorcycles and Jeeps and so forth, so I decided to take these ramps I had kicking around and massage them a little bit for my needs. So you can see here what they started out as just extruded aluminum. It has a lip that would fit over your tailgate, just like that. And then it had a chain that would go up and hook. They had a hinge. They had a bolt. There are 3 hinges on each one, where the bolt was offset, so a bolt would go down through. So it would be 1 wide ramp or 2 smaller ramps. I generally used it as 2 smaller ones, but what I ended up doing is on this one here is done. This one's the next one to be done. I decided to do one and see if it would work before I cut them both apart. So you can see this edge over here is a couple inches, probably 1.75 inches, about 1 7/8 high in comparison to this side. This side's pretty much flush. So what I did on this particular ramp was I just went through, took this piece off, stood it up in the vertical bandsaw, and went through and cut the side off. So now both sides are the same. Then I drilled out the rivets and pulled these sections out, and this piece that comes out about 3 inches. What I did on that was cut it off at about 1/2 inch, and then I took a piece of and then I took the other end of it, sliced the piece 3/4 of an inch, turned it to 90 degrees, and welded it on. Then I'll have an edge over here on the trailer that will just clamp or sit down into and hold it there, so that when the ramp's on, it'll be flush with the top of this. I could have gone ahead and left this flat piece, but I didn't want to scratch up the top of this decking after it's all painted. So kind of wanted to keep the trailers nice looking as long as possible. I like my trailers. I like everything when it's hooked to one of my vehicles. I want it to kind of represent me and my shop. So I didn't want to I know I'm going overkill on this utility trailer. It is a trailer, but like I said, I want it to represent me when it's going down the road or hooked to any of my vehicles. So I decided to go ahead and do something kind of trick on the end here. TIG welded it. I'll make a bar that stands off here about probably 5/16 or 3/8 of an inch that it will sit down into. And then I got a piece of angle iron that I'll weld up under the underside. The width of the ramp, I'll have one tucked over on the far left side and the far right side that'll slide up. And I had to cut the ramps a little shorter. I think I took two full sections out because it'll go up right up to where my axle is at. So I don't quite need the length that they were originally, because these were originally intended to go up into the back of a pickup truck. Whereas now that the trailer is only going to be about, I think I figured it's going to be about 16, 17 inches to the top of the deck off the ground. I don't need to reach, 2.5, 3 feet for a pickup bed. So anyway, that's the plan. I'll go ahead and modify the next one now, and then come in and make my supports to hold it underneath the trailer, and figure out a way of attaching them to the outside here, and then see what's next on our list. So I've got my 2 boxes cut out here for the tail lights. I just used a 2.5 inch hole saw. I come in and found my center, went over 2 1/8 to compensate for half so 1 1/4, so for half the 2.5, and then both directions of center, and then I took a die grinder and cut the center out, so ended up with a nice radius. Upon putting the tail lights, the gasket, the flush mounted gaskets in, and the light, I realized that with the plug on, it wouldn't sink in all the way. So I took a 2 inch hole saw, cut this opening in the back side. Then what I'll do is I'll take a piece of tubing, I've got some square tubing that I'll put over here, make like just a recessed box and cap it to allow for the wiring and the plug and everything so it doesn't hit. I don't know, probably not much. I could probably put a plate over that and be okay, but I'll probably space out a 1/2 inch or so, just to allow for when you're pushing the light in to sink it into the gasket. Let's see, and then I've got it marked here. I'm going for my side marker light. So I'm going to put this in the mill now, come up 4 inches, dead center in the middle, and I believe this is a 7/8. I believe this has to be yeah, a little bit more, not quite 7/8, a little over 7 3/4, or excuse me, a little over 3/4, so it's about 780 thousandths. So I will come in, slide that, drop an end mill down in there on both of those, and then work on capping the top and bottom and capping this back section, and then the tail light assemblies are ready to weld on the trailer. So I've just I came up 4 inches with my edge finder, found dead center here, so I'm going to pull my drill chuck out, and a 3/4 collet. Three-quarter end mill in there. Raise the knee up a bit. Make sure we're still within the, okay. All right, let's, so we take our, we use steel, so it's 100 surface feet per minute times 4, so it's gonna be 400 divided by, I'm using a 3/4 inch end mill, so 530 RPM. So let's, right there, and let's, this end mill might, you know what, I think I'm going to, rather than take that all in one cut, I think I'm going to center. I think I'm going to, this is one I've sharpened before, so it's not a, it should be a center cutting, but it's not, probably not as accurate as it should be. So I will put my drill chuck back in and drill down through it first, and then go ahead and come in with the end mill. Center drill it. Center drilled. Call it back up in. Compressor just kicked on there. There we go, that's a little better. Okay. Now, sure you can see this, but I've got my work stop set up down here, so I take this in and out to test fit the light in it without, and then put it back in and know that I'm exactly dead on again. So I'll go do a test fit and come right back. And there's the light centered right in there. So now I'll go ahead and do the same thing to the other one, and then I'll come in and start making my boxes and my caps. Well, I think I've got everything cut here now. I've got my spacers, blocks here. I'll weld on the back side there, and then I've got some 10 gauge that I'll cap them with, and then on the top side and bottom side I've got my caps made cut for there. So I'll come in and weld these, and I will be back with the finished product. Well, I got the box welded on the back. I got the bottom capped, top capped, and I drilled the hole in the sides for the small marker LED lights, and on the other side I drilled it down because there's going to be a corresponding hole in the trailer and the side of the decking where this goes on. I'll weld it around the perimeter, but I'll be able to pass the wires through from here into the deck, into the rectangular tubing of the trailer, and I won't have to have any wires exposed. So then I'll just drill a hole in the inside, and that's where I'll feed the wires through and run them underneath with some frame clamps. So see if I can get some close-ups of a few of the welds here. Don't know how those are turning out on video. Hopefully those will all turn out okay on video. Well, we're going to do a quick update here. I've got a little bit of fabrication done. I'm just about ready to sand her down and paint her. I was going to mount the spare tire up in the tongue here, run a piece of tubing across the tongue and come up and put the spare tire in front of the ATP that'll be on here. Then I decided to go with a tongue box, and I'm just still waiting on that. I found out on eTrader.com there was a poly one that measures 17 inches high, so it'll come up, still leave me about 7 inches or so, 6-7 inches on top for the ATP. But it'll come out and be able to store all my tie downs and everything in. So then I thought, okay, I need to change my thinking for my spare tire. So I was going to mount it up underneath, weld a piece across between the first spreader bar and the front deck, and hang a bracket down, drill it, and bolt it up from the underside. I thought that way it serves two purposes. It would clean up the front of the tongue and also keep the UV off the spare tire. However, after mocking it up in there and measuring it, it hangs down below the tongue here. It hangs down about 8.5 inches. So with trailer's level, it'll only be about 8.5 inches off the ground. And I didn't quite think that was enough. So I thought, well, I'll just push it further back closer to the axle and mount it up back underneath further. Yeah, I could do that and it would serve its purpose. But then I'm afraid it might be a little more cumbersome to get out from underneath the trailer if I ever had to get it out from underneath there. So I think what I'm going to do is just mount the tongue box on the front and then come off of the side here, because I've got the opposite side on the driver's side, the left side of the trailer, I've got my tongue jack, the pivot one. So on the opposite side, I will actually just come off here with some tubing, come up or out at an angle and then up, so it'll just sit outside of the tongue box and mount the spare tire right there. So it'll probably be even with around the top of the tongue box. So I'm waiting for the tongue box so I can fabricate that bracket, and then I'll just burn it in nice and make it look somewhat decent and smooth it to the frame, or the tongue, excuse me. So anyway, walking around here, I've got all my holes drilled. For the marker lights, front ones will be amber. Got two there. Also in the front fender struts. Rear one back here will be red. Got another one here that'll be red on the side of my taillight box. I did something a little unique on for the rear mount for the ramps. I have tried to figure out something that looks nice, that will still be functional. I did a snowmobile trailer for a friend a few years back, and I took and welded a round tube across with a plate coming off the corner, and the tube stood out away a little bit. And then on the other side, on the ramp end, I took a piece of tube and slid it lengthwise, so it kind of coupled over the tube like that, and come up flush. And it worked out good, but like I say, the tube stuck out here. I think it was a 3/4 or 7/8 inch tube, and then it stuck out here. So it stuck out a good inch and a quarter, maybe the most, from the back deck. And it worked good, no problems there, but I just wanted something that looked a little nicer. So what I ended up doing was machining some little standoffs. They're 1/4 inch long, so I spaced this flat bar, 1 inch flat bar out 1/4 inch, and then I drilled and tapped them. Then I sunk them into the drilled and tapped into the deck as well, so which is 3/16. So now I've got the 5/16 threads going through the bung into the deck, the 3/16 of the deck, and then bolted on. So good and solid. Here's how the ramp is welded. I took an aluminum ramp and just cut the end was flat, so it stuck out like that, and it was made to lay on the tailgate. I just took and cut it off and turned it under, and see if you can see one of the welds there, and just TIG welded the end piece on. Then it will sit in there, and it's got quite a range of motion. There's almost level, and there's down, let's see, there's almost level. That's pretty much level, and then here's down to where if the trailer was up on like a gutter or something, and the ramp was down in a dip, you can see it's got quite a range of motion, or a range of travel there to compensate. So that 1/4 inch was gap in there was plenty to compensate for that angle of that plate in there. Then I just have some angle iron up underneath with a couple of holes drilled in it, so the ramps will slide up inside of there. Ramps will slide up inside of there, and then I'll get a stainless steel piece of stainless steel rod and weld a solid piece on one end, slide it through with a hitch pin on this other side to hold it in. Up to the front where it fits up in, I think what I'll do is get some, I did this on my old Big Tex car hauler, is I just took some valve springs and machined a little thick spacer or a washer, so to speak, and drilled it through the front. So basically you have to push the ramp in, compress that valve spring a little bit, and then put the pin across the back. It works really good to prevent rattles. So the other thing I liked about doing something like this versus a piece, something like this where it stands out, you can see you can get all the way through it. Nice thing I liked about this versus a piece of angle iron, that was my first idea, let's do a piece of angle iron and trim it up so it brings it in closer to the deck. The problem with that is now you just created a channel for debris and crap to fill up in. So this way, hit it with a hose or whatever, it washes, cleans out whatever falls right through. Plus I think it looks kind of cool. And then I've got my 3 little LED lights that'll be sunk in back here, and with this 1-inch flat strap set just down low enough so that when the ramp is on here, the ramp is flush with this top piece. It still keeps it up a good 5/8 of an inch or so to allow for the lights to fit in there, the little LEDs. So I think it'll look really nice lit up at night between the tail lights and all the LED lights on it. So next order of business, I believe, is to get it all sanded and prepped, ready for paint. So you see on my E-track, I got all my E-track welded in. It sits just about a 32nd of an inch lower than the deck here. I put some spacers underneath to space it up, so when I put my 2x8s down, they will sit flush with the deck, so the E-track will sit about a 32nd of an inch below the deck and below the wood on either side. So if I'm not a carpenter, I don't pretend to be. I fabricate and wrench for a living, but if I ever had to haul a piece of plywood or sheetrock or anything like that, it would slide in across the top and not catch as if these were up on top of the decking. So just a couple little touches I've done to the trailer to make it unique, make it my own. So I'll probably get sanding on it and come back in when I'm close to either being done painted or prepping it for paint, one of the two. So there's an overview of it. Again, I had it sitting down on the ground earlier. I probably should have done a quick video of it. I think I had some still pictures I'll post up at the end of the, or in a couple of intermediate segments of the video here. But that's basically what she's gonna look like. All right, I'll get sanding. Well, I've got it all sanded and ready for primer and paint. So I'll just go do a walk around here. See all the, just run over it with a DA and then got down into all the little nooks and crannies. You can see where I've gone in and seam sealed all that. Sanded the fender down. I sanded the E-track down. Come around the back, sanded all my fender struts, all the back, tail light housings, all this back section around the lights, the bungs, everything's sanded, ready for primer and paint. I use a little bit coarser sandpaper than normal for a good finish. I generally will finish out with 400. This one I just ran over it with some 220 on the DA, just so that I can get the paint to adhere, and then she's ready for paint and primer. So there's an overview. Well, that was a messy job, but underneath is all brushed with Pour 15. I had wiped it down with a good wax and grease remover and just scuffed it. And I brushed the inside of my, so you can see down inside the inside of my taillight boxes, all the underneath. It's all coated with Pour 15. I got a couple of runs down the outside underneath, down underneath here. Once it dries, I'll hit that with the DA, smooth it off, and then I'm all ready to, I've got the rest of it all sanded down, so she's ready to hit with some etching primer and a good single stage urethane paint. My tongue box showed up, so I've kind of got it setting in place, mocked up enough room in the back to open the lid and have it not hit the front, because then the front will have diamond plate on it. So tomorrow I just have to weld a couple of cross pieces across the tongue underneath the box. I'll probably divide the box into thirds and run 2 pieces across to anchor the box down to. And then on this side, coming up off the frame about right into here, I'll probably come up a little bit of an angle and up and mount my spare tire right here. So there she is, all gloss black Pour 15 on the underneath. I usually am a PPG fan, but due to budget on this trailer and a good rapport I have with my local Napa store, I decided to go try their premium commercial coating line. I ended up getting a etching primer with the slow reducer. This is just a 10%. All the bare metal, I wanted something etched in good. I wasn't gonna, like I said, I usually use PPG products, but this time I think I'm going to go for a little more economical route. And then just a single stage urethane with the reducer and the catalyst. So just gloss black. I'll got the trailer sitting outside and ready to rock and roll in the paint. And here's the trailer prepped, ready for paint. Got it all sanded down, wiped down with wax and grease remover. Sitting up on jack stands, ready for coating, ready for primer, etching primer, and paint. All right, I'll hopefully next segment of video it's all painted. The front ATP is installed. It's 0.062 16th inch, and I just have it on with aluminum rivets. And so it is on. I've also mounted my tongue box. It just mounts down through, oh, got all my straps in there, but it mounts down through to those couple of cross pieces that I'd run across. It's pretty solid on there. All the electrical is done now. Got my adapter on there right now, my 4 to a 7, so I can just plug it into my truck and test it. But all the electrical's done with the LEDs, and I've moved on to making my cardboard templates. So I just got those cut out and clamped in place as a test fit. So next up is I'm going to transfer that over to the 4x8 sheet, so I'll be able to basically use the two halves and fit them together, I shouldn't have much waste left over. Probably a strip down through the middle, but I should be able to make pretty good use of that. So I'm going to go ahead and start transferring the measurements and cutting the aluminum for the sides, and then get them riveted on. So here's the 2x8s. I've got them laid out. I got plastic drop cloth over on the floor, and then my stands, and I've got them laid out. I've stood them up on end, coated both sides, did the roughest looking side first, flipped over, and then this is the top side. So I've got them all coated with a good heavy coat of Welding linseed oil. So let this drip off overnight. Tomorrow I can install them, and basically the trailer is done. Here is all of the aluminum tread plate. It's all firmly attached to the sides and the front. So you can see I just used aluminum rivets, using along the outer perimeters. Are spaced about every 4 inches or so, and then I'll probably be about every 8 or so down throughout the middle. All I do is put the boards on, and it is done. Walk around this other side and see my spare tire. I put the safety chains on with I've got a coupler lock on there right now. I still need to pick up a padlock for the storage box, but there's my spare tire. I'm also going to get a cover, just one of those snug fit covers that go over the spare tire to keep the weather off it, and then I have some of those elastic type covers that go around the tires for when it's sitting outside in storage. So next step, or the next segment of the video, is going to be a completed trailer. Well, finished product. She's completed, rolled out of the shop into the sunlight. 6x10 utility trailer, 2x3 rectangular tubing frame, 16th ATP front and sides, spare tire, 15-inch 205/75 15s tires, full-size tires, 2x8 decking. I just coated it with both sides with boiled linseed oil before I attached everything, before I attached it down to the trailer. LED lights all around, ramps underneath that slide out. And here's the completed project. Ready for use now. DZ tongue box, straps and attachments for the easy track, fold up Fulton tongue jack, safety chains, coupler lock. There it is. Now hopefully it's got a lot of years and a lot of miles ahead of it. So I appreciate you watching, and appreciate any comments. Thank you.